Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Origin Story, where we dive into how your favorite YouTubers got started and where they are going. I'm Mike.
And I'm JP, and today we're joined by a legend in the mountain biking community, Brian Kennedy. Brian, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Really excited. Yeah, really excited. We've been chasing this one for a while, so it's going to be great to put it on our repertoire and hear how you got to YouTube, because I'm sure there's an amazing story behind that. And so for those who don't know Brian Kennedy, he is the man behind the channel and the movement BKXC. He wants everyone to step away from their computer and take a ride on their bike and enjoy the outdoors. His mission has taken him to all 50 states and around the world, creating a community of over 434,000 subscribers. It all started when he saw shaky, low-quality mountain biking footage on YouTube, and he knew he could deliver what the viewer wanted to the mountain biking scene. 713 videos later and over 67 million views, I think he's made that statement. Tune in weekly to see where Brian will be and what trail he'll be conquering. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm really, really, really excited for this. Like we were talking before we started, we had two others on the show. They both referenced you as someone who got them started. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. I get emails from people all the time, whether it's YouTubers or just normal mountain bikers who, you know, when you search for mountain biking on YouTube, usually one of my videos is one of the top things that comes up. And, you know, YouTube's the #2 search engine in the world. And that all rolls into it. The gateway drug of people seeing my videos first and then being like, whoa, this is really cool.
Yeah. I think you opened my eyes to the sport without me even knowing it, because we were talking before and like, I was doing research in the channel and I'm scrolling through from the oldest to newest. And I'm like, wait, why has that got a red bar at the bottom? Why does that one have a red bar? And I realized I had watched a bunch of these videos before. I'm like, oh man, I had no idea that I had been watching you for so long. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Got your hooks in early, and that's great for the YouTube community and the algorithms, I'm sure. So it's working out good for you. Awesome.
So
well,
let's have you. Yeah, let's start before YouTube. And let's start with, you know, did you grow up in Northern California? Is that where you're from? Or you
I grew up in Fairfield, California. And then I moved to Vallejo, California after college. And so, yeah, I live like one town over from where I grew up, about 45 minutes from San Francisco, depending on the traffic.
Yeah, 45 minutes to 7 hours. Just never know.
Exactly.
And so is that where you fell in love with the outdoors and mountain biking and the culture behind it?
Definitely. So my uncle Dennis was a real outdoorsy guy. I had always been kind of more of a couch potato, video games and computer stuff. And when I moved back from college, when I was finished with college, working at the newspaper, I was working nights and weekends and stuff. And he would always go out for like early morning mountain bike rides. And I just loved hanging out with him so much. And I would like, okay, I'll get a mountain bike and I'll go out on these rides with him. And that's kind of how I started mountain biking, because I just loved hanging out with my uncle Dennis so much. And we would get out and, you know, I'd go to bed by like get home from work at midnight, go to bed by 1. And then he'd be out front of my door in Crockett, where I lived at the time, at 6 a.m. And we'd go hit the trails or go hit like the pavement and stuff. And we, you know, at that hour, you see all kinds of different animals out and everything. And my uncle Dennis always like wanted to pack everything into like a day. You just, okay, we do a bike ride in the morning, then you go here and then do this and do that. So he would always start early, get his ride in, and then go off for the day and go do all kinds of stuff.
That's an immersive experience right there. So you didn't start out with like BMX or any like gateway biking to get into this. It was just straight into it, or like when did you get into this bike?
I would bike, you know, like a kid has a bike, and I had kind of a mountain bike with maybe some gears and stuff like that. And then in 7th grade, I have a vague memory of my buddy Andy, his dad mountain biked, and we went to this place that I love to this day, Rockville Hills Park, and we went and kind of on crappy bikes and experienced it. And that was one little snapshot. And then a few years later, I think I had a bike, and I called up my uncle Dennis. I'm like, hey man, I want to go for a ride, because he rode at that time. And I also went to Rockville. I remember puking, and like, just so there was a couple things along the way where I did mountain bike, but it was not an obsession. It wasn't a routine. And even, you know, 2007, that's when I kind of got into it riding with my Uncle Dennis, I kind of fell out again. And then my brother got me back into it, and he's like, hey man, this is like the best way to get in shape. I was researching it, and there's so many good trails in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then we really started to hop back in around 2010, 2011. And you can go back to my Strava and be like, oh wow, yeah, okay, I remember that. And we did that time. And so it's really neat to have a vague memory of stuff and then be able to look back at Strava and now be able to look at all my videos. I've done 5 years worth of videos, and I have this crazy scrapbook of so many cool things.
Yeah, YouTube is that amazing just memory holder. I never thought of it that way. And then Mowgli, skateboarder from actually Northern California, he kind of was like, I think of YouTube as this medium to host my memories. And when my son is, 14, 15, he can go back and see who I was at 24, 26, 29, like pretty cool.
It's really cool because we all, you hear about people. I watched the whole series of Friends 7 times, or Sopranos. Like, what? How do people have all this time to go watch all this TV and stuff? But hopefully one day, my kids, my nephews, my nieces, all my sphere of influence will hopefully go back and start video 1 and watch and see like, oh man, I see you're in Spain. Oh, I saw you did this. I saw you did that.
Yeah. I mean, you also kind of brought it up earlier where people, even Mike was saying, he's like, I just realized I hadn't even watched your videos, but also like, I don't know, there's a lot of desk jockeys out there that, we're sitting behind a desk all day. I've got some friends that do mountain biking, and, whether they own companies or they're working at the moment, it's like, you're kind of sitting there during the day. And if you're doing some whatever work, you're going to throw on a video in the background. You're kind of daydreaming of like, all right, where do I want to go next? What do I want to do? And they get, you get connected that way. So you kind of get the amp up video just from watching it. You get hype video by, tuning in and watching all these videos of what you do every day. So it's awesome.
Yeah. And that's pretty much how I started my channel, was daydreaming about how could I build a business where I could just go out and mountain bike more. Can I build some kind of passive income thing, which, really doesn't exist. You think it does, but you always have to put the effort in, and always everything you put in comes back. But I was like, maybe I could try this or try that. And I actually started a couple YouTube channels doing that. So I had one called the Wi-Fi Garden, where I bought a bunch of Wi-Fi controlled sprinkler controllers, and they're really cool, but there was no videos on YouTube reviewing them. And these things were like $300. And every time you sold one on Amazon for an Amazon affiliate, you made like $15. So it was like actually a really good, like, okay, maybe I could do this. And then before that, the craziest kind of, there's a million pathways that led me to doing this, and we could talk about them all. But one of them was when I worked at the cookware company, 2013 or so. Yeah, probably 2013 or so. I had a buddy that was in the next cubicle that had a YouTube channel, and he had like 1,000 subscribers. And I was like, whoa, that's so amazing. His channel is called Boogeyman Ben. And he does horror reviews, horror movies, horror toys, and that kind of stuff. And just watching his videos, when I first heard about it, I'm like, wow, that is so neat. Like, he has the balls to get out there and film videos. And it's funny too, because the lady in the next cubicle, Jenny, we both like were totally inspired by that. We both like went home and made YouTube videos within the week, and we're like showed each other like, oh yeah. So the very first kind of more formatted me talking to the camera, let's try to do this, was an audiobook review. It was an audiobook review of The Martian by Andy Weir. And actually he has a new book out. I got to listen to that. And so it's just so cool. I did a bunch of audiobook reviews after that. It took me like another 2 months or something to get back into it. But that's like the reps of talking to the camera, the editing, the lighting, setting up all that stuff, just for fun, but kind of not to be like, oh, this would be really cool to make this work.
Is that where you
Boogeyman Ben?
Yeah.
Boogeyman Ben. I just looked him up. He's still active, man. He's in there.
Yeah.
And is that where you started to kind of formulate? And I think I'm getting ahead of myself into YouTube, but I definitely want to talk about this. Is that where you started to build the 3 C's? Is that like that whole concept of like, being consistent and having all of the right gear and creating good content, and that whole premise of like, how are you going to grow? Well, here's the layout of how I did it.
Yeah. So, and taking a step back from that, it was almost like I was a fan of YouTube. I don't remember if this is like Casey Neistat era, or that was like 2015 was Casey Neistat or something like that. And then I'd watch this guy, Rich Piana, this bodybuilder guy who was like a total funny dude. Like, he's so funny. He's ridiculously jacked. He actually died because of, you know, probably steroid abuse and all that stuff. Moving on, but you know, he had daily vlogs and he was going every day, and you'd wake up, it'd be a part of your routine, and you watch and be like, wow, this is very compelling. This guy has a lot to say, and he's very well spoken. It's not all about the juice getting jacked. He's almost talking about mindset. He's talking about like all these crazy things that people don't talk about, that anyone who's successful has to do and has to have a vision for what you're doing. So I was a fan of YouTube. I was definitely a fan. And you could see, we're talking 2015, 2014, whatever, that there was probably a guy or a gal, full-time fisherman, YouTuber, kayaker, you know, bodybuilder, makeup, all those niches had already been filled. And there was no mountain biker. There was no full-time, this is my job, vlogger, whatever you're doing. There was Nate Hills. And that's the video that I first saw when he had a clear image and clear sound, and he would do trail he does enduro racing, and he's a pro enduro racer. And he used the camera to actually get a better idea of all the twists and the turns. And he's like, hey, I'll upload these videos to YouTube. And like, people loved him. And I had already been stewing in the back of my mind. I already had the Wi-Fi garden going. I already wanted to get out and do my own thing and build my own business so I could mountain bike more. And I saw that first Nate Hills video. I'm like, what in the world? How is this? Because he doesn't talk in his videos. You hear a lot of the trail and stuff, but it just so happened the video I saw was one of his buddies following him. So the first thing I hear is chasing Mr. Hills. And it is the most crystal clear thing. After how long has GoPro been around before? Like, we're talking, I saw that video April 2016 because I started my channel like 3 days later. I bought all the gear. I found out what the gear he was using. So like April 2016, 10 years before that, GoPro was the biggest piece of garbage for mountain biking and most action sports, I would say. Somehow they get those ads to work with surfing and make them look good. It's the GoPro's finally getting there. Even the GoPro 4 at the time was garbage. But the sound and the audio, the sound and the video was just so crystal clear. It was like, what in the world? I never in a million years considered that you could do GoPro, because GoPro was garbage until they came up with the gimbal that was stabilized by mechanical like batteries and stuff, and it was so stable that you could ride and to actually talk. There was actually a good microphone on the GoPro Hero 4 that nobody knew, because you always had it locked away inside that plastic waterproof piece of garbage case, and the clicking and the clicking that you would always hear on GoPro videos. Terrible. So right then, yeah, it was awful. And then right then I knew that I could tell stories. I was watching Jay Leno's Garage, The Smoking Tire. I watched a bunch of different YouTube channels that would do it. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, I could go out and tell stories. I could go out and ride and tell stories and talk and narrate. And that's what I did, mostly solo for a long time. And then I would have buddies. And now I have 2 microphones that I've been using, wireless audio. So I got the person in front of me mic'd up, and we can have a real conversation. And it just gets better and better and better, even though it's been very slow evolution. GoPro needs to get going. But, you know, 95% of GoPros, people buy them once, spend $300, and that's it. And they put them away and they never use them again. So there's not much evolution going on.
Even now, but the issue is now is like, people don't go, they get them out of the box. And like, I'm a gear guy. So like, and I love photography and videography. So like, I'm a big fan of it. What people don't understand is like, out of the box GoPro settings, I guess, work for most things, but you really have to, like, if you want to get some crystal clear, beautiful footage that has great sound and all that, like, you need the right accessories, but you also need to set the camera up appropriately. Like, you need to set up all of these variables that put a cap on ISO and things like that to be able to get the right look when you're going. So it's funny you mentioned that mechanical gimbal, because that's your second video you made on your channel.
Yeah. And it still has a ton of views.
It has 420,000 shout out 420, 420,000 views from 5 years ago. But it's probably because people were like, what's this ancient technology? Like, what are we doing?
Exactly. And just like, oh, gimbal, you hear, I didn't even know what a gimbal was when I saw the Nate Hills video, but I saw a bunch of people in the comments saying, hey, what gimbal do you use? I'm like, okay, we've got something here. GoPro, gimbal, and then
like, maybe DJI was just becoming a real thing back then and started to get live with the gimbals. But even back then, it was most of them were mechanical weight driven gimbals.
And they're like built-in cameras. And that was definitely an explosion, 2016, 2017, of all that stuff of like, ooh, we could actually make this stuff look better.
Yeah. I think the GoPro still originally they had like the port for an external mic, then they took it away and made it only that internal mic. Now, at least for you, the Hero 9 has the external mic, and you can at least, you know, add some accessories and things like that. But it seems like you're doing audio on the side, not to go too deep into the gear.
Yeah, and at least the GoPro, I can plug in the audio that I'm using directly in the GoPro. I don't have to sync it up or do a clap or all that stuff, because that's a deal breaker for me. Like, yes, you can turn everything into a you can turn everything into a full movie shoot if you want to. That's not what I do. I document the ride. I go out on the ride. I don't want people to even really remember that I'm recording or that I'm doing anything. We're just hanging out. We're being buds. That's like, you know, run and gun documentary, avant-garde, not, okay, stop, let's go do it again. Oh, the lighting's, let's go back. Let's do this. I need stuff to work the first time and just be very rugged and just crash and go.
And have you ever... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to continue on your rant and say technology that's supposed to make your life easier but makes it more difficult could not be more frustrating. And you immediately just put it in the bin. I'm going to do something different. Like, I'll find something else that works. You know what I mean? So yeah, ease of use has got to be crucial for you, because I mean, you're going on long rides, you're doing all that. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's an important factor.
Have you ever done like a full video and then looked at it and it was just trash and had to throw it away?
No, I'm very, very lucky that I haven't actually had that happen. I've had segments get really weird and glitchy. I've like run out of batteries. I broke a gimbal one time in the middle of an amazing ride. I was in like Switzerland or Italy or somewhere just ridiculous, but the whole ride before that had been amazing. So I got enough out of that video. But luckily, because like even right now, my GoPro Hero 9, I've got like 3 of them. And the first one that I'm using like ruggedly, it has a lot of weird problems and a lot of weird glitches, and I have to stay on top of it. Sometimes the audio doesn't even come through, and then the back screen doesn't work anymore. So I'm using these consumer junk disposable products, which I think that's what GoPro is. It's consumer disposable junk, because they're just trying to get to the next one and the next one. I don't think enough people even use it to give them feedback to say like, oh no, this should be more. Like, I'd pay $3,000 for a GoPro that would be like good, like, because I need it. I need to be able to use it.
Yeah, the feedback loop is over by the time they release it. They're already on to the next product, so they don't. You could be like, "Oh, here's my feedback." They're like, "Dude, you're way late. You're way late."
Not only that, they've already solved that. They already solved that problem like 3 generations ahead. You just gotta wait till they get there. You know, it's like
exactly.
Same
I
thing.
can't hate on them too much, but I have to hate on them a little, because it's just so brutal. They make great commercials. That's what they make, but it does actually provide me to do my living, because 90% of my footage is a GoPro. But I just switched the Hero 9 only a few months ago. I was still using the Hero 4 in the actual Karma grip gimbal, so the GoPro gimbal, because that was the best. The audio from everything else was still garbage until now, 5 years later. Now the Hero 9's pretty good, but there's still plenty of glitches and plenty of weird things where it's like,
you got to give credit to them for changing the industry, because it would be much worse to drive down a ride your bike down a mountain with a DSLR camera attached to your chest, and then a battery pack full of batteries on your back, and a microphone sticking out here. It would not be as enjoyable. So
yeah. And really, like the iPhone, if one of my buddies strapped an iPhone to his chest and it sounded good and it looked good, and it's like, wait a second, is there actually something here where this is actually a legit competitor to the GoPro? And I haven't actually gone back to it and tried it since, but there's something there.
It's all about the sensor size, right? So it's going to be sensor size and stabilization. But it looks like, I mean, I'd be almost curious to see if you pulled out one of your GoPros right now, what your settings are, because it looks like you shoot linear. It doesn't look like you shoot wide.
Yeah, I do. I do super view, and it just, I'll do a little bit of correction for like the fisheye and that kind of stuff. And because if you did linear, you'd get like this big of a thing for the handlebars and that kind of stuff. But it's endless with the settings.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's the important part for the people who have a hard time with it, or go mountain biking, for instance. A lot of people probably watch your videos and go try to replicate it, and like, why doesn't mine look that way?
Yeah. And I definitely keep a lot of the stuff on auto. I don't go too deep on all that stuff, and it works pretty good. Sometimes you'll get weird colors and wonky colors because something's too green and it goes too purple, but it's really about just that exporting in super high resolution, uploading to YouTube. And I think honestly, who's got time to edit 2 hours of mountain biking that's super boring? And you're like, this is not what I wanted. So it's like the feedback loop of actually getting rewarded by, I recorded my ride. That was so fun. I shared it with my friends and it actually looked good and they liked it, versus you're burdening them with your videos that they don't want to watch.
Well, one thing I could say that I could see improvement on is I don't like their editing app. Like if I could edit an app, it'd be a lot easier, but I really don't like their model for editing in an app.
Yeah, I've never even tried it. I've heard people that edit full videos on it.
I do have to ask you a question. So you're growing up, you start mountain biking, you go to college. Did you think that this is what you were going to do? It doesn't seem like this was the path that you knew you were going to be on.
Yeah. How does a bachelor's in journalism
so
get you to a mountain bike YouTube channel?
Yeah. So I grew up, basically it was like, go to college, get a job. That was always the thing. It's like you go to college so you can get a job. Yeah, I don't have many entrepreneurial friends or family or anyone that like hustled from the beginning, that I cut lawns, I make popcorn and I sell it on the side of the freeway, or, that kind of thing. So as I went through just a journey of self-improvement and reading books and listening to audiobooks and all that stuff, it's like, oh, wow, there's people out there that like do this. And that's the people we all admire are the people that were crazy about making something happen. They were obsessed about making something happen. And it's like the only way to break away and to make time. So it's so funny. People always think about money and being rich and stuff like that. But for me, controlling my time is like what makes me rich. Like I make X amount of dollars. It's nothing crazy. It's good. I can have a house in the Bay Area and all that stuff. But I control my time. Like I have total, complete control over my time. I still need to get videos out. I do 2 videos a week. I have Patreon. Like I'm very much, that is my treadmill to go, but I have plenty of time where it's like, I'll drop everything today and I'm going to go do this. So I'm rich in my time. So basically how did I go from, journalism degree to YouTube? It was just that journey of self-improvement and being like, man, my favorite example is like, you call up the plumber, he doesn't call you back. You call a tree guy and it's like, he comes and he gives you a bad quote. So there's all these people who make a living with their shitty, pardon my French, with their really terrible businesses that somehow just limp along, and they're a plumber and they do this and they're an electrician and they don't call you back when you call. And then, so they're able to have a business. So why can't I have a business? Why do I got to go work for these people that don't really see how good I am? And I actually always feel like it's the luckiest thing that ever happened to me that I never worked for a decent company that could see my potential, or that actually gave me something to chew on, to like that I would really get obsessed and excited about, because then I'd still be working there right now for sure. Because I love a pat on the back. I love a attaboy. I love a 50-cent raise every year, so it's like the best thing that ever happened for me was that I worked for a bunch of idiots and companies that were like, what is this? Does this affect anything?
Yeah, like they drove you away, but it turns out it was a good thing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I mean now now it's all about clicks, it's all about views, and it's capturing other people's time with what you do, which is awesome. There's your attaboy, there's your affirmation, there's your pat on the back.
If you put a couple hours in more a week, you get yourself a 50-cent raise at least. You can't beat that, man.
We also had and I think Mike was telling me earlier that you did a developer boot camp too.
Yeah.
So before or after journalism? Like where
so I'll do the whole timeline. So I went to Chico State for journalism. I graduated, and then during the summer after I graduated, so that was all journalism. I did a lot of photo stuff. I did a whole self-taught, like I just bought an HTML and CSS book. And then I saw that the Napa Valley Register, which wasn't far from where I was going to move back to after college, had an opening for a web position. So it's like kind of an editorial web position. They've always had like the IT guy work on the website, like, oh yeah, you do it. But they finally realized it's like, okay, we needed like a person that has a journalism background actually working on the website, which was awesome because I had no experience and I just jumped in and they took a risk on me, and that changed my life for sure. Because I worked there for 7 years and it was awesome, but it was all nights and weekends. Like I love the news and so much stuff happening, and Napa was a very interesting place. But the nights and the weekends, just like I was a single guy and I stayed a single guy the whole time, pretty much. I blame that, whether or not it's true or not. So, so then I switched jobs to a cookware company, potsandpans.com, which was super close to where I live. Like I could ride my bike to work. I'm like, oh my God, we get all the weekends off. We get all the holidays off. It's an 8 to 5 kind of job. I could ride my bike to work. This is it. This is all I want. I could just save 30% of my income and I'll retire and I'll live eventually kind of thing. And so that was that.
And then are bad and you can't do anything.
Yeah. And so during that job, I was a web developer, kind of sort. I was still working on the websites, and I always realized that I was totally hamstrung because I had no programming chops at all. I could do plenty of HTML and CSS and little bits and pieces here if I Googled it, but I really didn't have that understanding of programming. So I was like, you know what? And this is all during my self-improvement journey and like, reading self-help books and all that stuff. I'm like, you know what? I just need to go and do one of these. It was called Dev Bootcamp, which is now defunct. But I was like, this skill, this thing, I need to do this. Like I've always felt like I couldn't do it. I need to do it. And it's like a sweet 12-week intensive course. And that's the way to do it. Like if you're going to learn a language programming really is learning a language. So I said, screw it. I'm quitting potsandpans.com. If I go back, I go back. If I get a job in San Francisco, which I didn't really want, I didn't want to do the commute and all that stuff. I kind of wanted to try to build my own thing, build my own app. And I still have like all these $1 million ideas and stuff for apps and stuff. But so yeah, quit. I said, screw it. Let's do it. Did all the developer stuff. It was awesome. It was such a good intensive course. You get out what you put in. I would be there for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day and just learning. And so you start dreaming in code and stuff. And I finally like, oh, okay. And programming is super hard. It's like, you have to take everything apart to its smallest pieces and be able to visualize. But at least I got through and I actually got those chops. And eventually I took about 6 months off and I was just kind of coding on my own and doing projects and stuff like that. And then Pots and Pans had an opening again. And that was like January 2016. So I went back to work at Pots and Pans.
I mean, not that long ago.
Within like 4 months, I started my channel. I'm like, oh crap, here we go. This is what I really want to do. And within 6 months after that, I'm like, hey guys, I'm quitting again. So I'm going to go do this. So
yeah,
it was kind of a cool day. It was awesome. They took me back.
Yeah, it's gears and bikes now. It's gear and bikes. Yep. No more pots and pans.
To even break down that, you started February 2016. Your channel started, you were like unbelievably spot on almost to the date, like April 6th. 2016 is when the channel started.
Yeah.
You must have watched that video on like the 3rd. And then literally you quit your job, went full-time YouTube in September. So like April is when you upload your first video, which is a bike stand.
Yeah.
Love
it is 1 minute and 50 seconds long, 56 seconds. So it's like not even in the realm of where you are today or what you're doing, totally out of that. And then you kind of like, so you start this channel why did you start with a bike stand review? What's the... So
it's funny because most stuff, I think most people who start YouTube, even my buddy Seth's Bike Hacks, Burn Peak, he's like #1, millions of subscribers. He thought, okay, it's all about product reviews and affiliate links. So you do a product review, somebody clicks a link because they're searching for it. You make 5 cents off of a $20 bike stand versus $15 off a $300 smart sprinkler controller, like I said earlier. So that was my mindset. I think that was even Seth's mindset going in. Okay, you're going to do reviews, you're going to have links, you're going to do affiliate. That's what you do. And that works for like the tech guys that sell $300 products and you're always reviewing new stuff. And that's a good pipeline. It's really good. And I still make decent affiliate link money from Amazon, even though I don't even push that stuff. I try to make a couple videos a year of like, hey, here's everything I wear when I mountain bike. Here's everything I on my bike and that kind of stuff. So I do some affiliate links and it does help. But when I first started, I'm like, okay, this affiliate thing, let's do this. Let's pump this hard.
But yeah,
well, you do a good job of that on your website. Your website is very much driven. There's a section of it that's driven to like, if you want to find out what I'm using, here's what it is. You have the gear, the bike, the camera, the merch, the
camera gear is good too. And people are always asking, oh, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? And I always have a link in the description, but people don't find it, don't click it. And cause it's, always the most common question. It's like, hey, buy a GoPro through my link. It helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes total sense. Like how much affiliate links can they give on $25 gloves versus, hey, I'm going to review this amazing printer or this new MacBook Pro. Click the link in the bio for the $4,000 laptop.
You realize that mountain biking is such a niche of a niche, like the outdoors and this versus you know, you see the views on certain things where it's like Marquez Brownlee releases a new review of the iPhone. It's like millions of views within the first day. It's like it reaches all types of people, all shapes and sizes, all languages, versus mountain biking. It's like fit person, fairly well-off person because it's expensive, and the funnel goes niche, 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 niche. But that's what you start to realize, that I can appeal to a lot of people just being entertaining. Lots of people don't mountain bike at all, and they really like what I'm doing because they like me, and I make it fun, and it's a TV show.
Yeah, and so you were one of the first people to put the voice in the helmet, more or less. And so even Jordan Boostmaster kind of talked about like watching your videos on Pink Bike, which I think is a hilariously like amazing website, and a community, which is a community within a community within this little niche, right? And so where did he actually took inspiration from you doing voiceover to do that on his own channel. So where did you come up with the idea of like, hey, I'm going to toss a microphone in my helmet and talk while I'm going down the trail?
Yeah. And like I said before, that was very much from, you know, watching The Smoking Tire, watching Jay Leno's Garage, and like, hey, they're driving a car and telling stories. I think I can just ride around and tell stories and make that happen, and hopefully be entertaining, because that's the whole thing. Everybody has a YouTube channel. Everybody's put out a video. Everybody's tried, but to actually capture someone's imagination and not have them click off within the first 5 seconds, even though that does happen a lot if you look at the analytics, but just to be able to entertain and to be able to do something different, because everyone could have a GoPro. Everyone can go decently fast on the trail. What makes me different is being able to talk and be able to entertain and do that. I think so many people don't realize that YouTube is a TV show. It's all entertainment. It's all it is. Like, I would love to actually inspire people to go ride places, and I have inspired people to go ride places and go do stuff, but it's mostly entertainment, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
That's why they call it a channel, right? There was someone very smart who said, like, let's call it channels, because, you know, it's like TV, you're creating a TV show, you have your own channel, you have your own network. But, you know, one thing you do very well, which my friend Justin Purser kind of explained to me from a YouTube standpoint, is the best YouTubers make it seem like anyone can do it. It's not overproduced. It's not overdone. It's like, hey, yeah, I could go on a mountain bike ride this weekend, and I could put a microphone in my helmet, and I could do these things. And like kind of JP said, you might not have the settings right, but like you feel like you're emulating the people you're watching, and you make it so much easier for someone to be like, I could do that. So the aspiration and the dreams start happening on the other side, on the other side of the desk, and they're at work and they're like, you know, maybe I don't want to start a mountain biking channel, but I love gardening, or, you know, I love the Rainbird water control system for my outdoor. I'm going to do reviews of that. And so I think that's one thing that's really cool from your channel, is that it might not, you have your niche, right? But so many people in the background could throw on that insane Highlands mountain biking trail that you did with like those little bridges. I could put that on the background of my work life and just be like, you know, working and look over and be like, holy cow, like you're in this like place where probably dragons eventually, you know, came to thought. And so I like that idea, that concept of the channel. It makes me want to be like, hey, let's quit the 9 to 5 and start a YouTube channel. So you're doing a great job there.
Yeah. And I really like, I mean, the thing about your channel too that's fantastic is to people on the outside. So I'm not a big mountain biker. I have a lot of friends that are very into mountain biking. The car community, I totally understand. I get, you know, I'm very into that. I understand it. But it's almost like what you do kind of opens up the realm, and other mountain bikers too. It's not totally exclusive, mutually exclusive. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, there is like there's an outstanding amount of fantastic mountain biking trails, purpose-built trails out there in the world that make you go like, why don't I have a bike? Like, I've got trails right around here that are great up here in Seattle. Like, why don't I go do that? Because when I look at your channel, I think it kind of inspires me to be like, oh, these look fun. This is awesome. This is purpose-built. This isn't just like, this isn't mulling around, you know, in your neighborhood or around your park or, you know, whatever it is. This is a full-blown day trip, weekend, you know, or week-long trip you can do with your buddies, your family, whatever, and turn it into a real adventure rather than just kind of a, let me just pull out of my garage and pedal around for a bit. It's a much bigger thing. I think you open the eyes to more people outside of the niche community. You've got a I guess out of the niche mountain bikers that are out there, you have a good market share of them, but you spill over big time into other people who say, oh, I want to get into mountain biking. Let me hop on YouTube and like take a look at some videos.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know it, they got a mountain bike and a rack on their, car and all the gear, and they're out there. So it's awesome. I think it's an inspirational channel. Do you feel that? And do you get a lot of that in your comments and things like that?
Definitely. I get a lot of emails of people like, hey, I just saw a video and seen you and a couple other people. And oh man, I've been here, I've been doing this and I've lost so much weight. And like so many of those are so inspirational. And it helps so much because, you get a couple negative comments here and there and it shouldn't matter, but it still does. It still kind of dings you a little bit. And so just getting those emails and people who've been inspired, it makes this whole thing so worthwhile. Because when I worked at the cookware company, the website that I helped work on, that I built, is still up right now. It hasn't changed in 5 years since I've left. Literally no one goes to it. It doesn't impact anyone. It's just that, hey, we have a company and we have a cookware brand, we should have a website, right? So that's what I did. I impacted 0 people, and now I impact quite a few people.
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, it's funny that you bring up the weight loss, because I like mountain biking or biking in general, or to be honest, I like any sport that is a recreational activity that just is completely disguising exercise.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I have a lot of friends that are in it or maybe they're not in it for weight loss, but obviously they're losing a lot of weight. I got a friend out in Bend who's doing great, and he's in the best shape of his life ever. Like, what was there a weight loss aspect to this for you?
No, I've always been kind of skinny and normal, but there's definitely a fitness aspect for sure. I remember some of the first times me and my brother were riding in the Crockett Hills, and we would go up these climbs and we just have to stop and lay down, and like we're both about to puke because it's so hard. And now we both go ride by that spot and we're like, we couldn't make it up that is almost nothing. So the fitness thing is always huge. You always feel it. You never feel like you're fast enough. You never feel like you're fit enough. So you're always just like, you can only rent it. You can't own it.
I feel like I was watching. So I feel like the climb is something that people always just are like, oh, it's not, it's not that bad. It's like surfing, right? I always describe surfing to anyone. They're like, oh, I would love to go surfing. I'm like, okay, if you were to go skiing, would you hike up the mountain? They're like, no, that's stupid. There's this chairlift. I'm like, okay, so you're probably not going to like surfing. It's you're like paddling a lot. Like, it's not going to be good. Mountain biking, I think, has a good aspect of like, you can go to a park and you know what you're getting into, or you can go climb, and that's the fitness aspect of it. And one of your videos in particular that made me like just baffled by like a climb was, what are we getting into? Mountain biking Snowdon? Yeah. That climb was just insane. And then at one point you fall and
it's windy.
Yeah, it's windy. You fall, and then your friend looks back and he's like, you okay? It's just like that, the standard comment back, like, you fell? Yeah, you're good. Okay, let's just both hike up this. When do you kind of determine like, it's a little too far out of my fitness level, I gotta hike this?
Yeah, it's funny. You kind of always give it a try. Like, you're like, okay, I'm going to try. Oh, and then, okay, I didn't make it. And you always try. It's like, that's mountain biking. You try. There's certain, I guess it doesn't happen very often where it's like actually dangerous to like start climbing and then, oh, there's nowhere to step off. So we always give it a try. Like, okay, I'm going to try this. And then, I'm going to go back and try it again. And then you just get too tired. You're like, okay, I'll just walk my bike like everyone else and go through it. So it's kind of a fun little challenge. And especially when you go back to those places and you're like, oh, I did it good. I did even better.
Yeah, I can imagine like exactly like you said with your brother. Like, and I'm sure when you're doing laps at certain places, then you come back like 3 months later and you're like, I've made it so much further. That's something which is disguised a fun activity, but has a fitness level. It must motivate you to get out and do,
definitely. Like, accomplishment, any kind of accomplishment, like making up a tough climb, getting down a steep chute, doing a little jump that you've never done before. It's all progression, and it's all like, oh, I'm actually winning. And when you get wins, it gives that feedback, because people always talk about burnout, especially with YouTube. It's always like the effort you put in and the rewards you get back are mismatched. So it's like when you put in a big effort and you get a big reward, burnout will not happen. You're just always going to be like, man, that was so fun. That was so good. That video was great. Oh, that mountain bike ride was awesome.
Yeah, that kind of moves us towards the analytics side too, because I think that's exactly the same way. Like, the one thing about YouTube versus a 9 to 5 is it's like you're doing a 9 to 5, but your boss doesn't tell you how much you're going to get paid until after you submit your project. Like, okay, just, go work for a couple days. And then at the end of it, we'll give you some money. And you're like,
yeah,
that's what? I don't know. How does that work? And so like, you've been doing it for 5 years, super successfully. You have 67.7 million views. You have 7 videos over 1 million views, which is a huge accomplishment in itself. At what point from starting in April, quitting your job in September, how many subscribers did you get to before you determined like, I'm ready. I believe in this. This is a movement I'm going to start. I'm ready to quit my job.
Yeah. So pretty quickly, because I kind of figured 50,000 subscribers is like, that seemed like a logical number or something like that. I figured once I started, I'm like, oh man, people like this. Oh man, I'm actually getting subscribers. Oh man, like it's actually working. And every time I'd uploaded, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So it was like, okay, this is going to work. I'm going to make this work. I wasn't making, $3 a month or whatever on the YouTube analytics. And I didn't even have like video ads turned on until like the next year or something like that. I was like way like out of it. Like maybe it was later on that year I turned on video ads. And then even not until like this year, I turned on like multiple like mid-roll ads. Cause I was like, oh, yeah. I don't want to do it. It's like, oh wait, I don't want to triple my income. I guess I should probably do it. And nobody's complained. People still watch the videos. YouTube is what YouTube is versus trying to be on my high horse. So, but yeah, so I believe truly, if you're doing everything right, you can make $1 per subscriber per year. I'm not doing everything right. So like I have 420,000 subscribers. I'm not making $420,000, but I could be. I really believe I could be if I'm hustling this and doing this and making this happen. And just if you're working every angle, you really could be. The opportunities are very much there. But like, having a little bit more of a normal life and more control over my time and not making $420,000, it works for me.
It's like that triangle they tell you before you go to college, right? There's like the social life, the academic life, and then for athletes, it's like athletics, like choose two. And like it's 100% true. You can never be in the middle ground there. And with YouTube, it's like, okay, it's probably not even as simple as a triangle. It's probably like an octagon. It's like, do you want to diversify with Patreon? Do you want to have, do you want to have your Google ads turned on to maximum potential? Do you want to have this, and links, affiliate links? Like there's so many opportunities. Do you want to sell merch? Like, but if you want to sell merch, then you got to go get someone to develop the merch. You got to build the merch, store the merch, you got to ship the merch, but you're living in a van. Like there's so many things that go into it. Like, where do you get the time? Oh, and by the way, would you like to ride your bike and have fun and go see your family once in a while? Oh, sorry, you gave that up a long time ago. It's tough. Like I see that.
It's a hexagon and you can pick 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I gotta wonder, like, what, and this is something that's come up, especially since this podcast started. And I mean, how much has the pandemic impacted your channel?
Not at all. I was able to travel. That was the best thing about having the van. So I could stay in the van.
Impacted it, whether it be good or bad. A consequence can be a good or bad consequence. Like, how did it help? Like, what happened?
No, I don't think it was negligible to me, even though, really? They say that 3 times more people are mountain biking now than they were last year. It's like, I don't have 3 times much more views. I was still able to go do my 50 state shred, even though I only made it to 49 states. Hawaii was still like locked down with COVID. But for me, I noticed no difference at all. So it was like, nothing good, nothing bad, nothing different. I went back home and I kind of hunkered down for a little bit because everyone was like, I don't know, what should I do? And then when I felt like, okay, I'm going to get back on the road, I can be self-contained in the van, I can go ride, I can do stuff. And I did. And yeah, it was a blip.
Yeah.
But even performance-wise, I mean, obviously you're growing organically through your subscribers, but as you scroll through, it's like the traction that you've gained, you haven't seen an increase in, like a big like upshift.
No, a good video. No, a good video will always do good. So it's like, if you look at my past few videos, they've done terribly. Like the last 3 videos are horrible. And then you go back a few more, 100,000 views, 300,000 views. So people are like, whoa, good thumbnail, good title. That's the key. It's like, people are like, wow, this is awesome. Versus like, huh, what's this? Is this good? Do I want to watch this?
I know one that did do well during the pandemic and have been doing well, and you're sitting in it right now. The van scene is crazy. The van always gets views.
Yeah, people love the van, and like especially during the pandemic, the fantasizing about the van and like, oh, do this and do that, and it's funny how that it keeps performing. People keep commenting and stuff, and it's just so cool because it is. Hopefully I was able to give like a good overview, and I've done a couple follow-ups of like, okay, I've been doing this for like a year now, and I don't live full time in the van by any means. I'll still stay different places, and I have a place and all that stuff, but I put enough miles driving and stuff to actually get a good feel.
But it's actually a good cross-pollination of viewers that you might not have otherwise captured, though. It's almost like you jumped into a new realm. So you probably gained some subscribers just being like, oh, van guy. And they're like, oh, shit, he also mountain bikes. This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting you say that, because it's that whole angle of, do you want to go broad and you want to just get as many views as possible and just boom? And so, I've got plenty of videos that have, millions of views, but did any of those people really stick around? Some of them do, especially if it is mountain biking, it does gain traction. But I almost liken it to like a guy walking by on the street and like, oh, they stop and they're like, oh, wow, that was cool. Versus that depth, that deep kind of thing. And you think about Casey Neistat in 2015, or even there's a van, they're not van life couple anymore, but Trent and Allie, they have a really big YouTube channel going crazy where it's like the titles and thumbnails are still good, but they're on such a roll right now that they have a connection with their audience, and like that audience wants to know what is going to happen next, which is the best thing you can have. You can always do the clickbait. You can always do top 10 things. You can always do, a girl in a bikini or whatever that will get people from off the street to come and see and check it out and be like, oh, wow, that was kind of fun, and keep moving on. But when you actually hook people in to who you are and what you're doing and to give them an ongoing storyline, that's the depth is what it's all about.
Yeah, you can have a subscriber base, but it's truly who are the weekly, daily, that true base of like, they haven't been touched by you by saying, oh, I like vans, and they're like, oh, mountain biking video again, let's just see like what did he get the 4x4 package on his Ford Transit? Like those kind of questions.
Yes,
you're like,
exactly.
I don't think you know the channel. Like, it's not about that. And I think you gotta, when you're building a channel, you got to determine like, are you going that way broad, or are you going to be super niche and like have a true following of people who want to watch? Like, oh, he went to Tennessee this week. I've been wanting to make a trip there because I live in northern Florida and it's not that far, and I know they have mountains there and they have hills, and he's going to ride this trail, and I got to understand more of it. So once I get to the trail, I'll have a good feeling of what I'm going to have.
Yeah. And I think experimentation, like you don't have to know all the answers, and you don't have to be like so many of like YouTubers seem to start this mythical second channel where they're like, oh, we need a second channel to do this other stuff, where it's like, what, who cares? Like, we'll just put it all on one channel. People want to watch you. The algorithm's going to suggest it anyways. Like, it doesn't care. It doesn't know. It just knows that everybody does this. And like, why would you start over where you probably aren't going to even be able to get it monetized for 6 months or something like that? So, and who am I to say if maybe that's working for everyone who starts the second channel? But I don't think, it just seems so weird to me where it's like, it's okay to experiment. You haven't really built this massive thing that's just so undeniable, even though we all are scared. We're totally scared of YouTube, and changing one thing's gonna totally kill my entire income and it's all gonna fall apart. But like, I still take chances. I still do stuff where I'm like, I don't care what happens. I like this idea. I'm gonna do it.
But I feel like that's the people who do exactly what you just said, is like, they feel like their channel's so niche that they can never jump out of the box because they're too scared of like, oh, my subscribers don't like that. They don't want to see my garage. They want to see me ride my bike. I'm like, no, man, like I'm here for you. I'm here for Brian. Like, I want to see, I mean, 90% of the things that you did on the videos I watched today, and I probably watched, I don't know, like 3 hours. It was not even me watching. It was me listening to you. Like, I liked the commentary. I liked who you were. I liked the fun and finesse of the channel itself. That's what drew me to the channel. Like, it's you. It's not like you could be riding like a little mini bike down the trail, and I'd still listen. Like, it would be first off, it would probably be hilarious because I'd be like,
Yeah.
like, oh, this route is usually very small on my regular, you know, like that's who you go for. And like, I
Totally.
understand the fear of like my subscribers won't, but the reality is they're here for the person, not for the content that you have.
Yeah. And you build the gilded cage, like the big YouTubers where it's like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is all I ever will be. And this is, I got to get the views. I've got to have people like me versus, you know, PewDiePie's kind of done it. Feeling like, I'm not doing this. I'm doing this now, or taking risks. And it's like, whoa. And it only increases. And people only, you know, one of the big streamers, Summit 1G on Twitch, he's a gaming guy. And he, like, when everybody was doing Fortnite, he said, I don't like it. I hate it. I'm doing this every day, streaming Fortnite. It's garbage. So he just started streaming other games. And now he's the #1 streamer on Twitch. And he did what was true to himself, what he could live with. And I'm sure everyone that's a creator has a balance of like, okay, I got to do this. This is what's good for the channel versus, I just want to screw around and do what's good for me. But you make your own path and people get magnetized to that.
Well, Casey did the same thing. Casey never jumped. His channel's him. I guess he was so broad, more or less, in a sense that he could do whatever he wanted. But like, you know, you'd watch him make a peanut butter jelly sandwich in 2015. It didn't matter. He'd probably get you mesmerized by it. So
totally.
Yeah, but I think that's also kind of important is to keep the door open. So the way I look at a lot of those like van videos where you're hitting kind of those periphery, viewers that you might not have ever seen, is that they watch you and they go, oh, okay, all right, I'm going to subscribe because I just like that. I like this guy. I like what he's doing. And all of a sudden you got a guy like me who's not a mountain biker, who's watching mountain biking. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, that's kind of the difference. So you do have to have those that kind of reach out, but it's all about you. And like, I do see a lot of car channels oftentimes. And it's, to be honest, it's some of like the newer car channels that are trying to be like hip and cool. And they'll be like, all right, we got a second one. It's going to be our vlog. And I'm like, I'm just into like,
it is so weird. There's no manual.
The content's already a vlog, right? It's like, like they're just like walking through their garage, like, all right, we're going to do this on the car. I'm like, what? Okay, so now you're in your kitchen waking up. Like, I don't care. Put that in your freaking video, like, and be like, whatever, you know?
So I would have watched that on the original channel.
Exactly. But we're digressing. So I want to go back and talk about, like, there's a couple major milestones with YouTube, right? You talked about like 50,000 subscribers, but 100,000 has been deemed the plaque. So you get the plaque. How did that make you feel? Did that justify the fact that you're like, hey, everything I'm doing is right? And then what was the feeling like when your first video hit 1 million views?
Yeah. So it's funny because the subscriber thing is always interesting, but it's like, it's so irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. It's a weird thing. It's like YouTube should have never even named it subscribers. It's like, these are weirdly casual kind of people that like what you're doing. They're not paying, you know? So 100,000 was pretty much, it was just a fart in the wind. It was kind of cool. The plaque is neat to be recognized, because all you feel like as a creator is that YouTube doesn't care about you and like doesn't listen to you. Because even at my size, 420,000 subscribers, there's probably 3,000 of us or something, you know, there's some ungodly number, probably 10,000 people with that many subscribers and that many people making YouTube $100,000 a year, whatever the number is. Like, there's tons of them. They've done it all. Who cares? Like, so 100,000 subscribers was a cool milestone because it's like, that's like a stadium or whatever. But yeah, getting a video that hit 1 million views was like, whoa. But even then, you feel like, I have no control over this. Was just, all my videos are pretty cool. I think they're awesome. I watch them all and like, oh, wow, that one's kind of weird. That one actually doesn't flow that good. And then boom, one of them magically hits 1 million because they're a weird thing of circumstances and it hits 1 million. So it's funny how like doing the work, making the videos that I like to watch is like, that's the daily grind that matters the most versus these weird little, like hitting 1 million subscribers someday. That it seems like that'd be pretty neat. It'd be pretty cool. But really, having that good solid foundation of people that are always sticking with me, milestones on Patreon are kind of important, because it's like I can't do anything without Patreon. It's like I talked about before, of changing my ad mid-roll stuff, and YouTube ad money is just such garbage. Of, oh, I made $100 this month. Oh, I made $3,000 this month. Oh, it goes up and it goes down. Versus Patreon is just this nice steady thing across the board of these people who are like, hey, I really like what you're doing, and it is a lot to do $3 a month. It is in the world of subscriptions and everybody wants a piece. Like I've got about 2,000 patrons that are like, yes, here you go. I love what you're doing.
Well, that's amazing too. It's like the sales strategies, right? Do you want to be on a commission-based sales structure, or do you want to have salary plus bonus or something like that? And it sounds like, you've kind of focused in on the salary side of like, I want to have this steady income. I love my community and a good job. I don't really care. And YouTube is kind of like the bonus on the side.
Yeah, building the depth, building the people who like, and I love it all. I do like it all. I do have to put the effort in for the YouTube, and like, it's both sides of the coin for sure. But there's a lot more validation in Patreon, and like these people are stepping up and doing this. And it's like, yeah, okay, these are my people. They get what I'm doing.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of a focus group. And I think it's funny because we ask that question almost every time, or we do ask it every time. And then every time somebody talks about 100,000 subscribers, by the time it seems that a YouTuber, their channel gets to 100,000, the goalpost has been moved. They're already thinking about way, way beyond that. They're like, all right, 100,000, like it's not really part of my strategy right now. Like my strategy is like other ways to, to grow and make sure that I'm enriching my, whatever it is, enriching my content for the people who actually care about it, right?
Yeah, because it has no bearing whatsoever. Like, even though I said earlier, if you have 100,000 subscribers, you probably should be able to make $100,000. Who knows? Maybe you're not at all. So it's such a ephemeral nothing thing that it's like 420,000 people do not watch every single one of my videos. So what is it really?
It's like exercising, right? It's like you get in shape and you're like, all right, well, I'm not in shape enough now. I need to be in better shape.
Yeah. The goalposts are moving.
Yeah, just keeps on moving. But that's always good. It's like, that just means you just keep on progressing and make better content and do better for your viewers and do more fun activities.
Stay hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Stay hungry. Hungry dog runs faster.
It seems like series seem to be a good way to stay hungry. Like, traveling to different countries. Like one of your biggest series that you did was through the United Kingdom, Scotland, and England. That seemed to do very well. The 50 states is always a fantastic idea. We talked about Ben and his travels to surf every state in the country. And, you might not have done all 50 states in 1 year, but you have accomplished the 50 state rule, which is huge in the marathon world, right? Like that's massive beef in like if you're doing a marathon in every state, you're a badass, So
wow, I've never heard that. That's cool.
Oh yeah, dude. It's like, if you've done a marathon in every state, you're like, that's like next level. One of the guys I work with in the queue,
you have to do one every 3 days.
He in 1 year is like
1 week. Sorry, 1 week, 52 weeks. Not a big math guy.
Yeah. Sorry, but like that's less than one a week.
Over a lifetime. Almost.
Yeah, over a lifetime. If you've done all 50 in every year, in your lifetime of marathoning. But like, how important is like the concept of a series to a channel, or is it like, or how do you come up with the ideas of the videos? Are you just saying like, hey, I'm in Northern California today, I'm going to do these 4 trails and put together a video. I'm going to go over here next week and do this. Or do you come up with the series and then kind of build a shot list for a month?
It's interesting because I think both are very important. I think about this all the time because I wing it a lot, because my goal is 2 videos a week. So I'm like always a slave to 2 videos a week, where it's like, oh, okay, I'll go do this ride. And for me, I almost like describe my content as fishing. I get out there, I put the GoPro on, I go for a ride, and somehow I always come back with some good fish. And sometimes it's a massive record-winning, record-breaking fish, and then sometimes it's a pretty good fish. It'll feed you, and it's decent. So the way I wing it and like go like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go do this because I want to get 2 videos out a week. It's not the best strategy, which is so funny because I have all these like YouTube buddies and stuff that have started channels, and it's like, oh, don't do my strategy. Whatever you do, don't do what I do. It's all fishing expedition. But the series, oh man, the series is definitely, like you mentioned, the UK. I was so surprised, and I think people got engrossed by it. A lot of sharing, a lot of, oh, wow, he finally made it to the UK. And the writing was amazing. So when all those things come together, it's like, wow, I got to go back and watch all these videos. And it's very self-contained. But then sometimes I'll do a series, like when I went to Japan, the first video is like, boom, crazy. And then nobody cares about the rest of it. But also because the thumbnails and the titles start to look the same. I went to the Czech Republic and that series did super well. And the thumbnails and titles were all good and people were stoked on it. It's so much, the thumbnails and the titles, like, oh my God, which is brutal for me. Cause like, you have to come, like, what was it? Was it fun? Was it good? And without, being dishonest, you still have to intrigue people and you still have to make it like, hey, this was really cool. But then, I think more and more about, okay, what am I doing? Why am I riding these like kind of semi-crappy trails when I have control of my time and I can do whatever I want? So why am I still kind of honoring these other ideas and being like, oh, that was pretty good. So like, why don't I just dial it back and just make sure that every ride I do is like that Arkansas ride, Mount Nebo. If you only have a day in Arkansas, ride this one, and just went off the charts because it was just that fun. And I was riding with a really fun person and everything just came together. Thumbnail, title, and the actual content delivered. So I think about that a lot, so much, but you kind of just have to keep grinding and keep moving and not obsess about every little piece and bit. I do really well. Like all my YouTube buddies that I know are like always in their analytics and they're always not like, I don't even know when videos come out. Sometimes I definitely check and I'll go and I'll look at the dashboard and see, but like, I am pretty good at keeping an arm's length and not being like, okay, it just came out first hour, first 5 minutes. Oh, do I need to change the thumbnail? Do I need to change the title? My sanity is I can't do it. It's too much is wrapped up in that. So making sure right now when I'm making videos today, that's all I can control.
I don't want to lift the skirt too much, but
let's do it.
Are you preloading your video? Like, so how far in advance are you loaded?
Oh yeah, I always edit. So basically my last big thing was I did like 10 or so rides in Virginia and now I'm back home. So I have 10 videos I need to edit, right, that I haven't edited, that are hanging over my head right now. And so I try to get ahead of it, but it's so hard. Like it's a day to ride and a day to edit. Like some miracle days I get back from a ride and I can actually edit that ride that day, but the mental and the physical energy is just not there. So my editing process is usually about 4 or 5 hours. But when you just like you go to work at a cubicle 9 to 5, you're really only probably doing 4 hours of focused, like hardcore work. I'm the same way. I got to get through emails. I got to do a phone call. Like there's all these little distractions and stuff where it's like, I got to sit down and so I got 40 hours of work ahead of me. And now I've just got a couple other videos from California now that I've been back, and it just crushes me so much.
Yeah. Chefs don't like to go home and cook.
Yeah. And so 2 videos a week, which is great because I love having the buffer. So I've got these 10 videos, which is 5 weeks of videos. And if I throw some live streams in, I can buffer out where it's like, hey, I can take a week off here. And I am going to take a week off, in a couple of weeks and go to New York and for my fiance's wedding and all this, or fiance's sister's wedding and all that stuff. So there's all bits and pieces that are like, I can still live this life, but oh man, it's pretty hectic and pretty stressful.
But there's so many different mentalities. Like there's the shoot, edit, drop, shoot, edit, drop. And then we talked to another guy, Brooks Holt. He's a mini golf. He goes around to like do mini golf things.
Cool.
Oh, dude, if you like mini golf, his channel's awesome. And what he does is like him and his girlfriend, they go and do a trip for, I think they do like 2 months on the road, 2 months off the road. And basically he goes and shoots 2 times a day he plays mini golf, and then he edits them all for after he gets back for 2 months, pre-uploads them, then they're on the road. So he's like, but whatever, what is it, like 10 cents here, 2 nickels over here, a dime here, 2 nickels over here. How are you cutting it? You're doing the same amount of work. It's just like, what do you want to do and how do you want to edit and manage?
It's true.
So no,
exactly. And I feel so close to the editing. Like I've had other people edit my videos and I always consider like, could I hire someone? Could I really hire someone? I don't think I make enough money to really hire someone. Like all of a sudden you have an employee and workers' comp and all this, like you can't pay them less than $20 an hour or else you're like a jackass. So it's like how it's so tied in where I do the editing. I love the editing. And it's just this weird, it's not a business. That's the thing, like it might seem like a business, but a business is almost something you could sell to someone that has some value. My channel has zero value. I stop tomorrow, the channel maybe will keep making money for like a year or so, but then it'll just kind of peter out and everyone will forget it ever happened.
Well, you could do the Bear Grylls-esque way of like, you know, you create the name for yourself and then you get branded products after your channel.
Oh, and that's
right.
That's always what I'm thinking about, is always like, how can I still want to make videos. I still will make videos, but how can I get off the treadmill just enough to be like, oh, I'm doing this now and I'm doing this now. And I've got a couple of those projects.
Because there is a question from Instagram on that. So I don't want to spoil that question, because I think there's a really, really good one. I liked where you're going.
Yeah. So it brings me to a good question, or just about your videos essentially is like, because you were on the ride, you know what you said, you know what you did. If you were to hire somebody to edit those videos, it might take them longer. You know, it's going to take them a lot longer to go through and kind of process. It's more of like your thought process, right? It's your videos, it's your mind that we like to watch. So that's why it's almost important to like have you at the controls and say, I remember the ride. I know where to clip it. I know it was good. I know it was bad, right?
Especially if it's fresh. If it was like, if I edit the next day, boom, boom, boom. Oh yeah, I remember this. Ooh, I remember this and stuff. And especially if you say something weird, like I'm joking with my friends sometimes, like, oh, I don't really want that in the video. And I'm pretty good about that, but it's like, oh, you hire someone and they clip it out and they put it on the internet, like, oh God.
There we go. Yeah, you get into a whole mess, right?
Cancel.
It's not like you can take notes while going down the trail, like, and even like I feel like the GoPro has that like clip button that you could like clip, but like then you take your hand off of the
and you can say it. You can say, hey GoPro, put a highlight, but then that's in the video. So it's so much of just it's tough.
Not on the Hero 4, but
yeah.
Yeah. So like, where did the idea for 50 states, like where was the goal? Like, okay, so the world goes into lockdown. Where did you get that idea and concept to be like, hey, I want to do 50 states in this year?
Yeah, so I wanted to get the van because I just thought that would be a good big goal that I could spend the whole year doing. And I thought it was going to take me a lot longer. And I'm like, oh man, am I actually going to do it? It's a big series that everyone can get behind. And that's like when I walk around and I meet people at the trail and they're like, oh, 50 states, oh, 50 states. And then someone were like, are you still doing the 50 state shred? So it's funny how something can transcend people and like hear about it and know about it without being like fully on board of like what's happening. But yeah, I just thought that'd be so cool. I knew I was going to get a van because it'd be a great adventure vehicle. And I made a whole video about it because, you know, I lost my Uncle Dennis, my beloved uncle, a couple years ago. And I was like, screw it. I'm not going to make any more excuses. I'm not going to live in the van, but I know the van would be a great adventure to go around and go see as much as I can and live as hard as I can and just see as many cool things. And the van is the medium for that.
I have an interesting question. This kind of hits home for me as a friend who just got severely injured in downhill mountain biking, but you go, I mean, obviously you're not doing as crazy of stuff. Like you're still doing your fair share of difficult trails and jumps and things like that. But when you're looking at those 50 states, especially for a sport like mountain biking, it's not a matter of when, it's a matter of how bad, right? As far as injuries, like how do you assess your risk versus reward when you're going into like a 50 state series? Because you have to be very smart and accurate about what you're doing. So is there like, well, how do you think about that? Or is it just natural for you?
I'm pretty good about, you learn like to assess the situation. All trails are rated at like different black, double black. And I've done tons of double black trails, mostly tough techie features, rocks and roots and stuff. I am bad at the jumps and I know I'm bad at the jumps and I try not to jump as much. That's where I'm out of my depth. And that's where I know I can get hurt and injured. But really with mountain biking, anything can happen at any time. People get hurt in the parking lot. Like, oh, I wasn't wearing my helmet. I was practicing wheelies and now I have a traumatic brain injury. So I've been lucky. I've been very lucky, but I've also been smart. Like I've had a couple little boo-boos here and there and some weird stuff where it's like, oh, I think that's broken, but it's not really affecting my riding. So I'm just going to go through and keep going. But my buddies, like all my buddies have had really major injuries that have kept them off the bikes for long periods of time. And I'm just not that guy, which is people find very aspirational that oh man, I relate to you so well because you're not, hucking it like a Red Bull guy where it's like, for me, I'm like, I do want to get fast. I do want to get really good, but I kind of like the pocket that I'm in where I can control a lot on the bike and not get hurt and still have fun and do this thing. This is still a job to me, because if I can't work, then I got to start doing some other thing and, you know, live streaming or finding other video ideas. Brian's woodworking channel.
I mean,
which do well, by the way.
Yeah. And so in the 50 states and seeing, you know, obviously like you're going to get blown away by your home state and you're going to have your home trail and that beauty, but like what trail or what state just blew your mind of like, holy cow, this place is amazing? Or this one, I mean, you did a lot of trails in Florida, which I was
that you didn't expect as well. Maybe something you didn't expect.
Florida is amazing. I had so many great surprises on the 50 state shred. That Florida was super cool. I'd been down there before, but then I had so many cool places. Really, there's two like super big surprises for me. West Virginia, they've got mountains, they've got trails, rugged, wild riding. That was like, no one's ever told me this. I almost have a chip on my shoulder because I get a ton of emails from people saying, hey man, you should check out this trail. Hey, you should check out this trail. And then I go ride these trails that no one's ever talked about. And I just randomly find them on the map. And I'm like, why didn't anybody tell me about this trail? Where are you people at? Who are you? Like, come on. Then another really, really good surprise was Massachusetts. And that was one that people had been telling me about for years. It's called the Vietnam Trails. And I had an awesome guy riding with me, showing a local Pat, showing me around. And that was awesome surprise, awesome ride, best ride of the whole trip.
West Virginia, I can definitely attest to it because I mean, I'm from Pennsylvania. I currently am in Pennsylvania, and I don't know. I feel like there's this weird connotation with.
Well, hold on, you just went there. You spent a weekend there for like.
I just spent the weekend in West Virginia, literally the past weekend with Drew. I was telling you about him and a couple other friends, and like, Drew's like, "Oh, we're gonna go to West Virginia." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know about that." I was blown away. The state is so beautiful. We're on this river and there's these amazingly beautiful rocks. It literally looks like Pocahontas is going to row down this river on her little like canoe that is forged out of these trees. It was so beautiful. The water was crystal clear. Where we did some climbing. I did my first ever rock climbing outdoors. It was terrifying. I don't know if I ever want to do it again. I probably will. But yeah, like it was so amazing just to be in this state. I was blown away. I agree, dude. And Massachusetts is also a great state. But like I you know, we would always go to New England as a kid, but like West Virginia, never spent any time there. New River Gorge, if anyone
never hear anybody talk about it. Try to name one city in West Virginia.
Yeah. Well,
little West Virginia.
Little West Virginia. What's you caught me. Somerville is where I was. But that's the only one. There's what's the one where the college? So you're right. You got it there.
Charleston, I think, might be our.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to dig ourselves in the hole right now. From West
Anyways, let's bump that state up the list.
West Virginia PR needs some help.
Yeah,
it's so good though. It's so beautiful, and like, I mean, everything. I was blown away by the people. They were so friendly and nice. Everything about the state was amazing.
And I think a good thing about what you do, Ryan, is like, I think mountain biking is a great way to see things efficiently too. Like you get to take in so much on those trails. And like, what's like an average like trail length you go on? Like, would you say?
You know, I would say an average is probably like 15 miles, and you see a lot. Like walking is too slow. Sometimes mountain biking can be a little too fast. Driving's too fast, right? So mountain biking is just right in the middle. And I always say it's like the best way to get fit, the best way to make friends, the best way to have an adventure, and the best way to see the world. So you actually get to see all these places as they're intended at a really good speed too.
Clip it. That's a great clip. No, that's awesome. I mean, you're having fun doing it, man. You're having a great time doing it.
So before JP kind of rolls us to the end, JP, do you have any more questions?
I don't know. The risk versus reward one just hit home for me because
it did.
I think I've got some friends that are my age. I'm 32, you know, trying to do hardcore downhill mountain biking, getting injured. And it's just like, hey, like there's a more like recreational way to do it to still enjoy it, you know?
I'm gonna ask a couple questions. JP has 2 questions at the end, and they're 2 of my favorites.
Cool.
But before we get there, I'm gonna. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'll add it in. I'll add it in.
You want to add it now?
I want to add it in. Yeah. Who do you watch on YouTube right now?
Oh man. So in the mountain biking realm, BC POV has this awesome series going right now where he's building a trail, and it's like this amazing trail. I'm sure everybody is hyped to go ride it, and he is awesome. But I also watch a lot of like wrestling stuff. I like pro wrestling. There's this guy named Jim Cornette that kind of makes fun of pro wrestling because it's gotten so fake and weird, and so I'm a must listen on that. I'm trying to think of some of my other like must watch subscriptions. I like the Fails. Claire Sappit's Dessert Person. She makes all these different desserts and stuff. I have like a big wide ranging YouTube thing that I just love it. There's just so many things happening.
Yeah, you can find anything on YouTube.
Well, you seem like you're a car guy too. Obviously, you mentioned Smoking Tire a few times, so you obviously do.
Yeah, Cletus McFarland. I've been watching him. He does all kinds of goofy stuff. He was actually a big inspiration for me more recently because he bought a racetrack, and it's just you know, I could do something like that. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be tough. It seems impossible, but that's kind of been my driving force more recently. Like I could do something big that could roll into something even bigger.
Well, Seth just bought that, or Seth's doing the bike park in North Carolina.
Yes, exactly. So he's helping build. The city of Canton owns the property, but he's going to get his own little sliver that is like a bike park, super big, cool jumps. It's all funded by Patreon and other sponsors, and it's amazing to see that wheel. You get that wheel spinning, and people will come along for the ride.
Yeah, man.
It's all about the personality too, and I think that's where Cletus McFarland. Like I've been following him since like. It's unbelievable, like how long I've been following. I've seen every single Cletus McFarland YouTube video, I think ever. And we're actually going to have Project Prime on at some point here once things slow down. And he does all the videography and raps and stuff for Cletus too. So we'll have him on. Taylor Ray was on here as well. Yeah. So we're trying, you know, I love the car community, so I kind of blend into that. I'm kind of going off topic for this exact channel or this exact episode today. But yeah, no, that's a realm that we had Ed Bullion on recently. So
we're having I hate to preface anyone coming on just because, you know, like things happen, man. Like
things change. I was so scared about it today because I was like, oh god, am I gonna make it?
No, we were emailing about that. You're very responsive on a bicycle riding down a hill versus emailing. I'm just kidding. No, man, I think there's a lot of there's so many. The beauty for us is like, you know, my dad was like, oh, you're gonna run out of people. I'm like, have you been on YouTube? Like, you know, it's an endless bucket. Like you literally just named 3 people for me that I've never heard of. And I'm sure they have like 500, 1 million subscribers. And like, my father-in-law sends me people. He's like, you should have this guy on your podcast. I'm like, who is it? And I click on the link. It's like 8 million subscribers. I'm like, yeah.
How is it possible that there's people with that much of an audience that you've never heard of?
They have more than a network TV show gets in views in a year subscribed to their channel. Like crazy.
That's what I hate about the YouTube algorithm too, that you get so trapped in your own little bubble of like, oh, I watch this and that's all they serve you, versus there's some amazing stuff out there. Just send it my way every once in a while.
You got to do the incognito window a couple times a week.
Every once in a while, you got to go.
It helps you, man.
See what else
hop on incognito, figure out what's going on in the world.
Because it's mostly going to be like monkeys unboxing toys, but
they don't respond to emails too. I don't understand it. Like I found the same thing. Like one of our biggest hurdles on the podcast itself is like, it started out very much like our own minds, right? Like, what are we watching? And then we're stuck in there. And so like that question that we just asked is twofold. Like, I'd love to hear what you're watching, but I also want to like broaden my horizons, because I've found most of the people that we interview and we bring on the show are not watching videos within their own realm. So okay, so I'm gonna ask a couple questions, and if you're watching the podcast and you've made it this far, your name will show up either down here or over there in a little comment box, because I've found myself to be quite savvy with editing. So I'm going to go back to the question I stopped you on before we took a break. And I'm going to preface this really quickly by saying, if I mess up your name, if I say it incorrectly, it's not because I don't like you. It's not at all intentional. It's just really hard to read Instagram names on the fly. So, Chris FYB, what are your plans after YouTube?
After YouTube? Wow, that's like a whole different thing. I don't think I'll ever not do YouTube. I think it's too much of a part of me. It's too much like I like the whole thing. I love the idea of being like 90 years old and uploading a YouTube video, and these people who have been with me for 50 years, 60 years or whatever will be like, wow, yeah, I used to watch that guy all the time. And like, that's just so good. So YouTube is the beginning, the middle, and the end for me, for sure. There always will be YouTube, but hopefully I'll be able to launch some other things off of my YouTube channel that can get up and running, that are businesses that don't have to have my face on them, that have different, entities and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And who knows with platform changes down the road. It's like, we went, I think we all grew up, and everyone watching this grew up through the phases of platform shifts all the time. And now we're getting into more longevity, but some people are changing their minds about certain platforms, and you never know what's going to happen. So it's like,
it can always change.
You're always going to be on the front of the wave, with whatever it is. So whether it's YouTube or what comes down the road 20 years from now, I'm sure you're going to be there.
For right now, YouTube seems to be very stable. Unlike but you could, that's the whole reason we talked about this before we started. The whole reason we started the podcast, like you could have chosen, Facebook or Instagram or Vimeo or something else. Why YouTube? Like, why? Yeah. Oh, because it's a community and you wanted to create that community. So I just messed up here. So mbert94, he asked, what state surprised you the most on your 49 state shred? I'm going to correct him and say 50 state shred, because he did hit Hawaii. And I think we hit that question for you, Mbert. So I think that one's pretty good.
I got another one. I could give another surprise real quick.
All right.
Vermont. So all I ever hear about is the Kingdom Trails. The Kingdom Trails, the place in Vermont that everybody goes to. And I was like kind of suspicious because I look at the map. I'm like, I don't know. And right next to the Kingdom Trails is this place called Mount Burke. And it had this giant mountain. So I climbed up this giant mountain and I did these 2 awesome double black runs. And I was like, where are why didn't anybody tell me about these trails? These trails are amazing. So Vermont, big surprise for me.
They probably didn't tell you about them because they wanted to keep them a secret, but you found them. Yeah. So good on you.
That was like when I moved to Seattle, my cousin was like, so glad you're here. Just don't tell anyone else.
I guess. Well, I got a good question. Like, well, you're just like tags along with this, kind of piggyback on that question is like, what state surprised you as far as like quality built like infrastructure for mountain biking? Because there's some that are trails, and then there's a lot of them that are like built up kind of like beautiful structures and all these different features. Is there some states where like, oh wow, this state has it together, that were different than those?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, the big trip I just did was in Arkansas, and like that state, like that thing is just ridiculous. They are moving forward. They are spending millions of dollars on trails because, in theory, every dollar you spend on a trail comes back 10 times through tourism and all that stuff. Right. People eating at the restaurants, staying at the hotels, buying stuff, moving there because they love it so much. So Arkansas is far and above anyone else, anything, especially Northwest Arkansas, Bentonville, of anywhere in the world, of believing in mountain biking and believing in the power of mountain biking. And in 5 years or so, everyone else is going to start to wake up and be like, we need to stop making $1 million ball fields and football fields and spending millions of dollars on these sports that are like, okay, versus mountain biking, which is lifetime fitness. All ages, all people can go ride them, and they're out there and they're sustainable, and it's just the magical thing. It just hasn't quite hit there yet for everyone to realize, oh wait, this is way better use of money than the golf course.
Which is and just in case the Arkansas Board of Tourism is looking for someone to sponsor, this podcast will fit in nicely. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, it kind of makes sense because you started 2016, and the next kind of major mountain bike only channel was maybe 3 years later, 2 years later. So the trend is slow, but I feel like it has steam behind it. And
yeah. And there's been, you know, there were mountain bike only channels, kind of sort of, but like the full-time thing. I think actually doing it full-time, I feel like I was the first one to quit my job. Even my buddy Seth, like he took a while. He still had some of his other stuff before he really jumped in, even though he's probably making 10 times as much money as me. But yeah, there's been mountain bike only channels. There probably was before and was since, but there was something of a revolution that happened in that whole 2016 era that sparked so many other channels and so many things that have come to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. Arkansas, is that where, that's not where Walmart's based?
Yeah, Bentonville, Arkansas is the home office of, so it's a huge thing. Tom Walton is one of the grandsons of Sam Walton. He is basically the mastermind behind most of it. And yeah, the Walton Family Foundation, philanthropy, they're very much involved, acquiring pieces of land, turning it over to volunteers, turning it over to the city. It's pretty amazing. And they've got to make that place attractive to attractive talent, young people that have, you know, that want to be in the hustle and bustle, and then they get offered a job in Arkansas and they're like, hey, my sister-in-law actually got like offered, it was like between, you know, being a buyer at Walmart or a buyer at Macy's, and you know, that was 10 years ago or something, that like Bentonville, Arkansas, huh? So this whole, like, you know, the people who know already know about the mountain biking, but the world will know eventually.
Yeah, I think Seth from Backyard Trail Builds, he went up there. He did a series of like riding some of those trails because he's in Missouri. So
yeah,
you've been there, right? You've been to his trails.
I did. You did go to his trails. And that was last year, and there's even more trails now. He's got a big clay lizard now.
What a beautiful idea! Like the subscriber trail build. I love. I mean, the guy is like, we were, when you were messaging me today about like, I don't know if I'm gonna have service, like I wanted to be like, look, Seth, he had service, like we got it done. And then we had the two guys who literally were like in the front of their pickup truck on the top of this mountain in North Carolina, Perkins Builder Brothers. They had it.
Oh, cool. Well, I haven't seen that. I love those guys.
Oh my God, dude, you got to watch it because there are some things in there. I'm not going to ruin it for anyone else. I had no idea. Like there's crazy things. Like, I don't know, how they got on YouTube is a surprise that you'll never know. They tried to go a different route. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we can roll it out here. So there's a lot of questions. I'm gonna tag like a couple people here. You know, would you consider doing the Colorado Trail? Are you considering a trip to Norway? Are you considering a trip to Minnesota, even though you've already been there? Like, where are you, or are you considering residency? I'm literally, so this is the difficulty, right? I'm scrolling through here. All of your names will pop up somewhere here.
Iceland volcano.
You're making it hard on yourself.
Are you considering residency in Florida? So like, are you like considering moving? Are you considering another big trip or series? What's the next step here?
I always consider everything. I always tell people too. It's like, hey, if you've got a great trail, or you know, for me to spend a lot of time in an area, I need like 5 great trails, like 5 amazing trails to do it, or one amazing trail. And I always tell people, you can hit me up. I get emails all the time, and I have to vet those emails and be like, oh, is this actually good or is it actually not? There's tons of stuff in Minnesota that I haven't even done. There's stuff in Norway. I'd love to go to Norway. I've seen some amazing pictures out on the fjords, and so that I'm always open to everything all the time. It just has to be good. And really, it's up to the person who's emailing me to pass a lot of criteria of like, okay, are they actually cool? Well, I want to ride with them. Are they actually a good rider? What's their taste? Like, I went to Africa on a whim because this kid, the 16-year-old kid, emailed me in Kenya, and we were going back and forth, and he was like, yeah, man, I think he wrote a really awesome email. I'm still friends with him to this day, Adam, but wrote a really nice email. We went back and forth, and I was, you know, on the fence. And then I would look at his Instagram, and he's doing these big jumps. He's doing wheelies. He's doing manuals. It's like, okay, if someone of this persuasion says that he has good trails, you just automatically know. You're like, this is vetted. We're good. I'm going to Africa. And I did. And it was an amazing trip. It was so much fun. And taking those chances, that's what built my channel. But it just scares me more and more every time, where it's like, do I really need to try to make this work again and end up sleeping on somebody's couch again and like all that stuff where it's like I should be better at this by now.
A lot of variables.
Well, you know, we all can still live that bachelor life and enjoy those things, because like, you know, the time and excitement of learning something new, seeing somewhere new, we're never going to get back in life. And I think, you know, flying to Africa on a whim could be something that you're going to tell your future potential children or nieces and nephews, and like, hey, I don't want to
have the videos to watch too.
I was about to say, I don't want to tell you about it, but you got the videos to go and watch it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The YouTube community circles back. And I think like my favorite part about YouTube is that whole sense of like, it's not just like posting a video on Facebook. And for me, like Facebook and like, oh, post it. Like I've met you in 2007 at something, and like now we're friends. Like YouTube is this community, and very similar to like Pink Bike or the other like Strava. We didn't get to talk about that. Like, you know, there's so many great communities within these sub communities of like running or biking or mountain biking or anything else. And that it's just amazing. That's what keeps everyone in it driving, right? Like on Strava, especially, like I see JP does a run. I'm like, crap, I guess I got to run today. I got to go do something. And so I put my son in a little jogger, and we go on a jog, not as fast as him. He's very fast. But man, I think it's awesome. Like we only had the question box up for a very short amount of time, and we had over like 50 questions.
That's awesome.
It's insane. It's insane. It shows it shows that you have a super amazing community here. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions here, but JP, why don't you roll us out here, and I'm super thankful for you hopping on the podcast, and I am so glad we made it work. This has been awesome. It's been a dream come true for me.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. It's awesome talking to you, especially somebody who's not from the the mountain biking world. I grew up as a BMXer as a kid, so doing all that stuff. But mountain biking I love, and I got a lot of friends that do it, and it's just one other hobby that I'm sure I'm going to dive into and spend way too much money on. So I'm looking forward to that. So thanks for that. And I'll have your videos to watch. But I think just to roll it out, I would love to hear just like, tell everyone, what channels they can follow you on, maybe where your Patreon is, and then most importantly, what you have going on now and what we can see from you in the future.
Yeah, BKXC. That's all there is to it. Go on YouTube, type in those 4 letters. It's not always easy to remember. See if you like it. If you like it, stick around. I don't post that much on Instagram, but I actually did recently. I did a 50 plate shred. Me and my fiance were driving back from Virginia over 4 days. We tried to get all the license plates. We found almost all of them except for Hawaii and New Hampshire. And it's funny too, because being back in California, I saw 2 Hawaiis over the past week. It's like, what the heck? There's Hawaii everywhere.
We used to do the same thing when my family used to drive from here to Florida for vacation, and we would drive with like 2 other my 2 cousins, like Michael and Dan's family, and like I remember the year that we saw a Hawaii license plate, we were all freaking just going nuts. And it was this, I feel like it was a Lamborghini, but we were also like 10. So it was like some sports car on the back of a tractor trailer, and it had a Hawaii license plate. And everyone, we used to have walkie-talkies back then.
Yeah.
Radio was like, did you see the Hawaii license plate? Oh my God. It was nuts, dude. But congratulations, 48 states is pretty good.
You see a lot more of them on the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington. You're going to catch a couple Hawaiis here and there, especially down. I mean, living in Oregon, you got a lot of Hawaii transplants living in Oregon.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, what do you got coming up in the future? Give us a little tip of the cap. What do you got? You got some videos coming out.
Everything's under wraps. So Virginia, there's a lot of Virginia stuff coming, but I actually do have something big to announce pretty soon, and that video will be here soon, and even sooner on Patreon.
Wow. Well,
even better. Something to look forward to.
Yeah. So if you heard the hint there, join his Patreon, be a Patreon. You get a lot of perks. Even like if you're a patron outside of the United States, you'll know where he's traveling to, and you'll be able to ride with him like he did in the UK and so many other places. So all of the information including a link to join his Patreon, is in the show notes if you're listening, or in the YouTube description below. And Brian, man, dude, I'm so freaking stoked to have you on this podcast. It's been amazing.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you so much for getting to this point. And honestly, we wouldn't get here without you guys. So if you enjoyed what you had, consider subscribing to both of our channels. You will be either, if you're working right now, I feel like you'll be entertained pretty well.
Yeah. You're gonna get some mountain biking, and we're gonna be all across the board on YouTube. So
yeah, we will. We have some really great content coming. So
yeah.